All right, let's start talking about capitalism. Every single country in the world has to answer three basic economic questions. What should they produce? How should they produce it? And who gets the benefits from it? Thomas Jefferson thought the U.S. should remain predominantly an agricultural country. Alexander Hamilton thought that the United States should become an industrial, financial, diverse economy. What did we produce? Then how do we produce it? The U.S. is a heavy industrial society. We produce everything we can with as much machinery as we can. There are robots in our factories. There are kiosks in our hotels. There are technological advances everywhere, self-driving cars. We build that way. Many other countries in the world, China, headed our way, but they're not our way. They're much more labor intensive in lots of what they do than we are. A country like Vietnam doesn't have a lot of capital. It doesn't have a lot of machines. What it has is lots of people, and they're going to produce in a different way. And then who benefits from all this? Who gets the money? Are we going to split it up even? Who's going to get the riches that are produced in our country? Big questions. Answers are isms. Go watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off. In the modern world, we primarily argue about two of these. One is capitalism and the other is socialism. There's a whole bunch of other words out there. Communism and socialism, it's even hard to differentiate. I had a student who grew up in Yugoslavia, and she had a bunch of friends who were from Bulgaria, and she used to make fun of them because they were socialism and she was communism. And that's because Yugoslavia had a lot more worker involvement in what happened in their economy than Bulgaria did. But the truth is that some of the distinctions between these things like socialism and communism aren't that well defined. There's other isms, there's feudalism, there's fascism, and we'll talk about some of that. So, capitalism was kind of named that by Karl Marx as he was trying to dissect it and show us what's wrong with it. And we'll talk about Karl Marx and his critique later on. Fundamentally, capitalism is called capitalism because there's private ownership of capital, because individuals can own the factories and machines, private people. Now, it's not the only system that's that way, and we'll mention fascism again. Fascism has private ownership of capital, but it doesn't have the other two. And fascism was Nazi Germany and Italy during World War II. We'll come back to fascism a little bit. So private ownership of capital, markets to do the work. The answers to those three questions, what to produce, how to produce it, and who gets the money from it, those questions are answered by free markets. So some people call capitalism free market capitalism. Some people call capitalism the price system. Some call it a market economy. And then there's a few people who will tell you that capitalism isn't dependent on that, but I don't buy that argument. You can buy that argument if you want. It's up to you. But not on your test. These three things are required for capitalism. And then finally, self-interest motives. And we'll talk about what that means again in a second. So we've mentioned this before. We need to mention it again. In a capitalist system, entrepreneurs own the capital. Marx was also throwing land in there, that these entrepreneurs, these capitalists, and again, he had different phraseology for it, but capitalists both own the capital and the land. A capitalist benefits from success by taking the risk. If you're the first person to come to Las Vegas and build a 2,000-room hotel where all the other hotels, the older hotels, have a few hundred rooms in them, and you walk in and you build one of the 5 biggest hotels in the world. If that hotel is successful, you're going to become a billionaire and you're going to set the tone for Las Vegas for the next 40 years. If that hotel is not successful, your investors are going to lose all their money. You're going to lose your money. You're going to lose your chance at success. So entrepreneurs take these risks, and because they're willing to take the risk and they're somehow able to put this together, they benefit more from the success than the other people who are involved. Bill Gates benefits more from Microsoft than people he hired to work for him. Again, here we are, capitalism. Market set prices of goods, the things we buy in the store, the price of those things is set by the market. How much do workers get paid? Well, the market sets that too. The market says LeBron James is worth more than a college professor, and that college professors are paid more than high school teachers, and that people who work in the IT field get paid more than people who clean rooms in the hotels. Those are market set prices, to at least some extent, market set prices. Again, markets, it's all about the buyers and the sellers being able to negotiate on the price. Our old buddy Adam Smith here is the one who says that what matters in life is our own self-interest. And actually other people said it first, but in the contents of this big picture that he's putting out there, people are driven by their own self-interest, and they shouldn't care. If you run into a burning building and save a puppy, it's not because you like puppies or because you're a good person. It's because you think that there's some advantage to you, some benefit to you. It's in your self-interest to save that puppy. It could be your own self-worth. It could be any number of things, but you are interested in saving that puppy because of the benefit to you from saving that puppy. Now, Adam Smith doesn't think that means bad things happen. Adam Smith thinks that means good things happen. You're doing what's best for you. But imagine that you own a restaurant. How are you going to be successful as a restaurateur? Well, you're going to have good food because people want to come back to your restaurant again. You're going to have to offer good prices to get people to come back to your restaurant again. And you're going to have good customer service to get people to come back to your restaurant again. If your food sucks or your prices are high or your service is terrible, people might eat there once to try it and they're not going to eat there again. And they're going to go out on Yelp and burn you, and your business is going to fail. So Adam Smith says that in a market world where there's properly functioning markets, which means there's competition, in this world where there's great competition, people will be led as if by an invisible hand to do what's right for society by doing what's right for themselves. So the invisible hand is competition. It forces people to do what's best for society by following their own self-interest. It aligns those interests. Why do we like capitalism? And most economists like capitalism. We like free markets. We believe in them. Well, first reason is that it has a lot of positive incentives in it. You sit around in your dorm room and you're thinking, hey, I can't search this internet very well. I should figure out it. And you and your roommate get together and you figure out a new, better way to search the internet and a model to sell it and everything. And you're a billionaire. Google doesn't exist in a world where there's no incentive, where if you can't make money off of an idea, why would you come up with a new idea? Why would you waste your time and effort doing that? We encourage people through positive incentives in capitalism. You gain. The better you are at your job, the more money you should make at your job. If you're really good at your job, your boss should want to keep you around, and the way your boss keeps you around is to give you more money. So capitalism is a system that should be based on merit. You should make more the better you do. Corollary to that is that capitalism should be an economy that produces lots of innovation and invention. Lots of new ideas. We should be constantly coming up with new products and new ways to produce. And you see our world. How many things do you keep in your hand that your parents look at you like, what's that? Because it didn't exist. Much of what we walk around with didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. We invent these new things, and every time we invent something new, there's a reward. There's a prize to the person or people who invented it. Capitalism produces large amounts of innovation and invention, and we think that's a good thing. It means also that capitalism is constantly changing, that capitalism isn't a static system where things stay the same over time. Things change. Now, if you've taken management class and you understand management, one of the basic premises of management is that decisions should get made as low down on the organizational chart as they can to make efficient businesses. If you want your economy to be efficient, you want the decisions to be made by individuals at low levels. And what do I mean by that? If there are 20 businesses that are all making decisions about what kind of shoes to make, there'll be a wide variety of shoes being produced for consumers. Consumers then get to choose from this wide variety of shoes, and if some of these companies have really good ideas, they'll draw a lot of customers. The other shoe companies will see this really good idea and perhaps copy it, duplicate it, produce. If one shoe company makes shoes that nobody wants, it's bad for that one shoe company, but the other shoe companies benefit from it. They get to jump in and sell shoes to the customers of that shoe company that screwed up. If we make decisions at the top of the pyramid and we make a bad decision, that decision filters down through the whole economy and causes huge disruptions. The higher we make the decision on the pyramid, the more of the economy it affects. The lower we make the decision on the pyramid, the less problem we have when there's a bad decision. Capitalism is all about individual workers, individual businesses, individual consumers being able to make their own decisions, being free to make their decisions. And that should minimize the problems that the economy gets into. Doesn't always, and we'll talk about what happens, but usually when there's something like a huge financial panic, what you see is a few really big businesses that are involved in it, rather than there being a whole bunch of small businesses that are each making their own decisions. Capitalism creates opportunity. Andrew Carnegie comes to America. He's got $25 in his pocket. When he dies, he's the richest man in the world. Bill Gates, college dropout, poor. He and three of his buddies create Microsoft, billionaires. In America, and in capitalist systems in general, it is possible to start at the bottom and make it to the top. And capitalism encourages it. There's other issues, again, we'll talk about. I'm hear some of you saying, hey, but it's much easier to get to the top in a capitalist system than it is generally in other systems. And what we've seen in the world in the last 40 years is that the world has moved more toward capitalism. What we've seen is the big socialist economies in the world open up and become more and more and more capitalist, but they've done so. In fact, all economies in the world are some form of mixed economy. So the United States is mixed capitalism. Russia now is mixed capitalism. We have capitalism and some of these other systems merged together, and the question is, how much capitalism are you and how much not capitalism are you? But this mixed capitalism, this fundamental where capitalism, except where there's a reason not to be, dominates planet Earth. Most of the economies, with a few exceptions like Cuba or in North Korea, have some mixed capitalism in them. A significant part of their economy is capitalism, and countries like the United States, most of the economy is capitalism. Not all, but most. Capitalism does have flaws. And that's what we're going to talk about next.